Thanksgiving at my parents' estate always looked like a magazine spread and felt like a shareholder meeting with better china. Crystal glasses caught the chandelier light. Imported flowers ran the length of the table. The silverware probably cost more than most people's rent. In the Morrison family, gratitude had never been the point, display was. My sister Vanessa sat near our father like she belonged there by birthright and board vote. At 34, she was the celebrated CEO of Nexora Systems, the software company she had taken public 2 years earlier. The stock had soared. The business press loved her. My parents loved her even more for giving them a daughter they could brag about in the language they respected most, valuation. I was 31, seated farther down the table, quiet in a dark sweater, carving turkey, while Vanessa performed for the room. "Lena," she said, using that soft, patronizing tone she saved for public humiliation, "you really need to stop treating investing like a hobby. A few index funds and a retirement account are not the same thing as actual wealth strategy." Her husband Grant chuckled into his wine. "Seriously, what are you working with? 100 grand? Maybe 2? That's adorable, but that isn't serious capital." My mother smiled without warmth. Lena has always had smaller ambitions. Not everyone wants to build something meaningful. I kept my expression even and cut another piece of turkey. "The stuffing turned out well, Mom." "Don't dodge," Vanessa said, enjoying herself. She had invited half her executive team to Thanksgiving, which told you everything about her. Her CFO Daniel was there. So was her COO Elise and the company's chief legal officer Raymond. She wanted witnesses. "I'm trying to help you," Vanessa continued. "You're 31. You should be thinking about your financial future instead of pretending self-managed investing is sophisticated." Daniel leaned forward. "Do you even have a professional advisor?" "I manage my portfolio myself," I said. That earned polite laughter all around the table. My father shook his head the way he did when I was a child, saying something he found naive. "That's exactly the problem." Vanessa smiled wider. "Our wealth division could probably triple whatever you've scraped together in 5 years. I'll set up a meeting. Early Christmas gift." "Thank you," I said, "but I'm comfortable with my process." "Comfortable staying small, you mean?" Grant muttered. My father set down his fork. "Your sister is offering real help. Pride is one thing, Lena. Financial security is another." I met his eyes. Richard Morrison had spent 40 years building a commercial real estate empire worth somewhere north of $800 million. He had also spent my entire life making it clear that Vanessa had inherited his instincts and I had not. "I'll think about it," I said. "That's your issue," Vanessa replied. "You think and think, but you never do anything bold. That's why you're still dabbling while some of us are actually creating wealth." Daniel raised his glass. To bold action and real value creation, Vanessa took Nexora from a $400 million IPO to nearly $3 billion. Everyone toasted. I lifted my glass without drinking. The conversation shifted to Vanessa's latest acquisition, a smaller competitor she had swallowed earlier that quarter. She explained the deal like she was on stage at a leadership summit. Her team nodded on cue. My parents watched her with the kind of pride they had never once managed to hide from me. Then my phone buzzed. I ignored it. It buzzed again. And again. My mother shot me a look. "Would you silence that? We're having family time." "Sorry." I pulled it out, ready to turn it off, and stopped. 17 missed calls, several urgent emails, 3 texts marked urgent, all from a contact at Goldman Sachs. Vanessa saw my face and smirked. "What is it? Market trouble with your little portfolio?" "Probably spam," I said. Then it rang again. Same number. Vanessa sighed loudly. "Lena, really?" I stood. "Excuse me one moment." I stepped into my father's study and closed the door behind me before answering. "Miss Morrison," my contact said, sounding breathless. "I've been trying to reach you for 20 minutes. We have a situation involving your position in Nexora Systems." My hand tightened around the phone. "What kind of situation?" "The liquidation order you placed last week for your full position. It executed this morning. $250 million in shares." I was silent for half a beat. "Go on." There's been a leak. The market has learned a major shareholder exited. Panic selling started less than 90 minutes ago. The stock is down 34% and still dropping. Trading has triggered multiple circuit breakers. I stared at the books lining my father's shelves. What's the current price? You sold at $54.20. It's at $31 and falling. Based on today's execution, you locked in roughly $247 million in profit before the drop. Financial media is trying to identify the seller. Nexora has suspended trading and called an emergency board meeting. My voice stayed calm. Any indication why the collapse accelerated? Pause. There are rumors of accounting irregularities, SEC inquiries. Nothing confirmed publicly yet, but it's spreading fast. I closed my eyes. I had seen the accounting problems 6 months earlier. That was why I sold. The clues had all been there in the filings if anyone had bothered to read beyond the headlines and adjusted EBITDA fantasies. I knew the company's revenue recognition was too aggressive. I knew certain capitalized expenses didn't belong where they had been placed. I knew the numbers were polished harder than the truth could support. What I had not expected was for everything to detonate before dessert. Keep me updated, I said, and send full transaction records for my files. I ended the call and stood there for a moment, listening to laughter through the wall. I should have stayed in the study. I should have left through the side entrance and gone home. Instead, I walked back into the dining room and sat down. I had barely touched my glass when the front door slammed open. A woman in a navy pantsuit hurried into the dining room, flushed and breathless. Vanessa's executive assistant, Claire. "I'm so sorry," she said, barely able to get the words out. "Vanessa, your phone is off. The board has been trying to reach you for the last hour." Vanessa's smile vanished. "Why?" Claire swallowed. "A major shareholder sold $250 million in shares. The stock is collapsing. Trading has been halted multiple times. The board has called an emergency meeting tonight. Reporters are already outside the office. The SEC is asking questions." Vanessa stood so quickly her chair scraped the floor. "What?" Daniel was already on his phone. "Jesus. It was 54 this morning. It's under 30. Elise had gone pale. "Who sold?" Claire shook her head. The transaction came through layered entities, but the seller held just over 4% of the company. They exited everything right before the collapse. Vanessa's hands started shaking. "That's insider trading. Someone knew something." Raymond, their chief legal officer, looked down at his phone and went still. "We have a bigger issue," he said quietly. "Bloomberg is reporting the SEC has opened a formal investigation into Nexora's accounting practices." The room went dead. Vanessa looked at Daniel. "Tell them there's nothing wrong with our accounting." He didn't answer. "Daniel," she snapped. He rubbed a hand over his mouth. There were some aggressive interpretations. Revenue was recognized early on certain contracts. A few expenses were capitalized that maybe shouldn't have been. "I warned you 6 months ago we were stretching." My father stood. "Vanessa, what is he talking about?" "Nothing illegal," she said too quickly. "We were maximizing earnings presentation. Everyone does it." "Not like this," Raymond said. Elise refreshed her screen and looked sick. "CNBC is running a special report. They're calling it a collapse." My mother made a small, frightened sound. Vanessa's panic turned sharp and angry. "Find out who sold. Whoever dumped that much stock before this news broke is finished." Raymond looked up from his phone. "We know who sold." Everyone turned toward him. It was Lena. Silence. Complete, heavy, glorious silence. Raymond's voice was careful now. The transfer agent identified the beneficial owner through Morrison Capital Holdings. Vanessa stared at me. "What? You owned over 4% of my company?" "Owned," I corrected softly, past tense. My father sank into his chair. "That's impossible." Daniel looked stunned. "How long?" 7 years. No one moved. I set down my fork. After I finished at Wharton, I used the $2 million grandmother left me to build positions in companies I believed were undervalued. Nexora was one of them. Back then it was private, unfashionable, and worth a fraction of what it became. I bought in early and kept buying over time. Elise blinked. You bought before the IPO? Yes. Vanessa looked like she was trying to process a foreign language. You were a major shareholder in my company for 7 years and never told me? I finally looked directly at her. You never asked. She opened her mouth and closed it again. You made it very clear, I continued, that you had no interest in my views on business, investing, or anything remotely financial. For years, you told me I was dabbling, that I didn't understand real wealth, that I needed professional guidance. Grant stared at my phone, then at me. You live in a 1-bedroom condo. Yes. You drive a Honda. Yes. You dress like someone who doesn't need strangers to recognize her net worth, I said. No one laughed this time. Daniel found his voice first. How much did you make? On the sale, approximately $247 million. My father whispered something under his breath that sounded like prayer or profanity. Vanessa's face had gone blank. Why would you sell now? Because I read your filings. The words landed harder than anything I could have said with anger. 6 months ago, I noticed patterns in your revenue recognition that didn't align with comparable companies. I dug deeper. The expense treatment didn't make sense. Your reported growth was too polished, too efficient, too eager. It wasn't proof of fraud, but it was more than enough to destroy my confidence. I turned to Vanessa. I actually tried to speak to you last spring. I asked for a private conversation about Nexora. You told me you didn't have time to explain business concepts to someone who played with stocks as a hobby. She looked like I had slapped her. So I did what any disciplined investor does when management loses credibility, I said. I exited. You destroyed my company, she whispered, then louder. You destroyed my company. No, I said calmly. Your accounting choices destroyed your company. The market doesn't forgive doubt when the numbers stop looking real. That's insider trading, she snapped. You knew too much. I knew what was in your public filings and footnotes. That's called analysis. Raymond exhaled slowly. She's right. If her decision was based on public disclosures and independent review, there's no insider trading claim here. Being related to you does not automatically create material non-public access. Vanessa spun toward him. She's my sister. And by your own behavior, I said, I had zero inside access. You excluded me from every operational discussion, every strategy dinner, every business conversation for 7 years. Congratulations, that helps me. My mother had tears in her eyes now. My father looked 20 years older than he had an hour earlier. Daniel checked his phone again. The board meeting is in less than 2 hours. Vanessa sank into her chair. I wasn't trying to deceive anyone, she said, and for the first time all evening, she sounded less like a CEO than a frightened child. I was trying to keep momentum, to protect the stock, to keep everyone believing. By presenting numbers in the most flattering possible light, I said, not cruelly, just accurately. She looked up at me with wet eyes. If you knew something was wrong, you could have pushed harder. I let that sit between us. I tried once. You told me to stay in my lane. Claire touched Vanessa's arm. We need to leave. Vanessa stood shakily, then looked back at me. How much are you worth? The whole table froze again. After today? I said. A little under 900 million. Nexora was my largest position, but not my only one. My father stared at me like he had never seen me before. You're worth more than I am, he said. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. Vanessa laughed once, a broken, ugly sound. We spent years talking to you like you were financially illiterate. Yes, I said. She left with her team in a rush of panic and phones and half-finished excuses. Through the front windows, I could see media vans beginning to line the street. After the door shut, the house felt suddenly too quiet. My father poured himself a scotch with unsteady hands. Why did you let us think you were struggling? I wasn't struggling. Then why live like that? I almost smiled. Like what? In a paid-off home? With a reliable car? In clothes I like? I never saw the point of performing wealth for people who only respect appearances. My mother sat down slowly. We really didn't know you at all. No, I said. You knew a version of me that was convenient. It took them a while to answer that. Finally, my mother whispered, "How long?" 9 years, I said. I've been building quietly for almost a decade. None of you noticed because I wasn't loud about it. Grant, suddenly stripped of all his earlier confidence, cleared his throat. What happens to Vanessa now? That depends on the SEC. If they conclude the accounting was intentionally misleading, there could be fines, restatements, maybe worse. The company might survive with new leadership and clean controls. Or it might not. My mother looked desperate. Can you help her? With what? Buying back into a company under investigation? No, but she's your sister. And I'm still not lighting my own money on fire to rescue her from consequences. No one argued. After a long silence, my father said, I owe you an apology. We all do. We dismissed you because your success didn't look like ours. Yes, I said. Can you forgive us? I thought about it honestly. Eventually, maybe. But not tonight. My mother came over then and hugged me carefully, as if I might disappear. I'm proud of you, she said, crying openly now. I should have said that years ago. Thank you, I said, and I meant it. I left through the side door to avoid the reporters gathering out front. My car was parked between a Range Rover and a Mercedes, ordinary as ever. I sat behind the wheel for a moment and let the quiet settle over me. Then my phone rang. Miss Morrison, my Goldman contact said, Bloomberg, CNBC, and the Journal all want interviews. No. They're offering substantial appearance fees. Several hedge funds and venture firms also want to speak with you. One of them wants to discuss advisory work. Decline all media. I'm a private investor. They're calling you the woman who saw the crash coming. I started the car. They can call me whatever they want. At home, I changed into softer clothes, made tea, and opened my laptop. Nexora had kept falling. My dashboard glowed green and red across the screen. The sale had added another enormous number to a life that already held more money than I needed. But sitting there in my quiet condo, I understood what I had known for years. It was never really about the money. It was about discipline. It was about reading what other people ignored. It was about not confusing noise with intelligence. It was about being underestimated and refusing to interrupt anyone while they did it. My phone buzzed with a text from Daniel. You were right. I should have listened. A few minutes later, another from Elise. You saw what all of us missed. Congratulations. Then one from Vanessa. I'm sorry for all of it. You were right, and I was arrogant, and I should have listened. I stared at her message for a long time before replying. I hope things end as gently as they can. Take care of yourself. The next morning, the scandal was everywhere. Vanessa had been placed on administrative leave. Daniel had resigned. Analysts were downgrading the stock by the hour. More requests came in for interviews, consulting, advisory seats, guest lectures, board positions. One message stood out. A professor from Wharton wanted to know if I would consider teaching a short course on value investing and forensic financial analysis. That one made me smile. Later that morning, my father called. I was wondering, he said carefully, if you might look at some of my real estate holdings. I keep thinking about what I missed under my own roof. I'd value your opinion, if you're willing. Send the statements, I said. I'll review them. He exhaled, like I had given him something larger than help. Your mother and I would also like to have dinner with you. Just us, no business. I looked at the financial statements already open on my screen, then out the window at the gray morning light. Next week, I said. When I hung up, I opened 3 more files I had flagged the night before. 3 companies showing early signs of the same kind of distortion I had seen in Nexora. The clues were always there if you knew where to look. Footnotes, timing, ratios, tiny inconsistencies hiding behind polished presentations. I started reading, line by line, number by number. That was the thing my family had never understood. Real investing was not noise. It was not ego. It was not expensive dinners and television appearances and market hype. It was patience, discipline, pattern recognition, quiet conviction. By the end of the week, Nexora's stock had lost more than 60% of its peak value, and every financial network in the country was still asking how one private investor had gotten out at exactly the right time. They thought timing was the story. It wasn't. The story was that everyone around me had been so busy admiring confidence that they forgot to look for competence. I took a sip of coffee, turned back to the next set of statements, and smiled. Some lessons cost a family its illusions. Some cost a company its valuation. And sometimes the person everyone dismissed as cautious is the only one in the room who ever bothered to read the truth.